Hey, it's Kai here from Family Wheels with another car review for your growing family. And before we get to the latest edition of an absolute icon, make sure you subscribe to the channel on the bottom right down here to catch all our reviews every single week. But this is the 2020 BMW M340i xDrive. And I know what you're thinking, sure, a 382 horsepower mid-size sedan, is that the best selection for a family? Actually, yes, this car is stacked full of amazing practical features that make it an excellent candidate if you're able to go shopping with this kind of budget. And sure, just a small bonus that it's a total rocket ship. Let's find out more this week with the BMW M340i xDrive on Family Wheels.
So let's get those impressive engine numbers out the way first. Yeah, this is a 3-litre turbocharged inline 6-cylinder, putting out 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, and it's attached to a beautiful 8-speed automatic transmission, and it's got sport shift. Which means if your kids do love acceleration like mine, you can do fun stuff like this.
3, 2, 1,
But what about all the other stuff that makes it a functional family car?
So this 7th generation of the BMW 3 Series is the largest ever. It's longer, it's wider than its predecessor. And when Genesis released the G70 not that long ago, it was aimed directly at the 3 Series. And Scott reviewed that one not long ago and absolutely loved it. But where this one has the advantage in terms of size, even versus the Audi A4, the new one, this has way more trunk space. This has 480 litres of cargo space in the trunk, or 17 cubic feet. The closest of its competitors that I just mentioned, the A4, has 368 litres, and the Genesis G70 has just 297. So in terms of families, this actually passed our standardized test quite well. Way more trunk space in this versus those two. One feature it's got on the trunk, which you don't often get in sedans, is the automatic open and close. So you can do it just with your foot, or you've got a button on the fob, wave your foot underneath and take off, and it will actually lock it automatically if you've got the fob in close proximity. I hate when you get a car and it's on a timer, so you're about a minute down the road and then it locks it, and then you turn around and go, did I lock the car? This one, when you're just a few meters away, it'll lock it, you know it's done, you can walk away, all good. But what about the looks of this? So this is the highest trim you can get on the 3 Series at the moment. There's an M3 going into production at the end of 2020, which I don't think will be as functional for a family. And then you've got the entry-level 330i, an amazing car as well. But this one strikes a brilliant balance of elegance and attitude. I mean, look at this beautiful color. Brand new grille on the front. Obviously, the M340i gets a bunch of different sporty trimmings on it and different openings for airflow at the front. Some BMW purists don't like the new grille on this one, but I don't mind it. You've got the laser light headlamps, which, by the way, if you have the laser light headlamps, it will give this car a top safety pick plus from the IHHS. But that side stance, those new 19-inch rims, elegance and attitude, it looks fantastic. The color, by the way, is called Tanzanite Blue 2 Metallic. It's a $1,450 option, but it's deep and rich. And that balance of elegance and attitude translates to the interior as well. This is not an intimidating sports sedan. It is brilliantly luxurious in here. This is the cognac leather on these seats, which I absolutely adore. It's got all the different adjustability, lumbar support, side support. It's even got the cushion extenders, which I like. I'm 6 foot, so sometimes I'll look for that to have a bit more support for your legs when you're driving. Heated front and rear seats. One thing I love as well, so this steering wheel is actually quite telescopic, which is great for when you do have kids in the back. If they're getting a little bit bigger, if you actually have to pull your seat forward a bit, you can bring this quite a ways forward and back, so you can bring your seat forward and then not be totally cramped by the steering wheel, which I thought was awesome. I mean, that's really close to the dash there, and that was actually really useful when I had my son in the back. And the interior is stacked full of amazing, very practical and functional features. We're going to get to the connectivity in a second and the outstanding setup with the driver assistance package. But what about space in the interior of this car? Now, as I mentioned, the size versus the G70 and the A4 almost identical. It's really crazy, like an inch difference here or there for passenger leg room in the front and in the back, shoulder room, head space, etc. But our standardized test of the rear-facing kids seat wasn't too bad. Obviously, this is a mid-size sedan, so it's not going to compete with other SUVs, which we've reviewed on the channel. Now, the other seat in the back here, this is very chunky. It's enormous. It's the Collect Flow. I would not recommend that car seat for this car at all. It's far too big. But using the other one, the Diono, that rear-facing, not too bad. Bit of room in front for the passenger. The door arches are really nice and wide. They haven't cut them off at an angle at all, so that really helps getting kids in and out. Space for passengers, adults in the back driving, very comfortable. Heated seats in the rear and the front, and as I mentioned, this cognac leather is just absolutely to die for. Anchor points for the kids' seats, very easy to find. Flick up the latch and there it is. You've also got the tethers back behind the rear headrests. All right, before we take this car on the road and check out the outstanding driver assistance package and also the performance of this car, by the way, you don't need to be intimidated by this car. This can be a very gentle runabout if you want it to be. Let's check out the BMW iDrive 7. Now, it's the newest of the technology for BMW. It's a wider screen up the top here. It's still controlled via your wheel down the bottom. Very straightforward, very nicely positioned here, so you can drive along with your arm on the center console and take care of it. It's even touchscreen, very responsive, excellent resolution. Now, BMW have really set out to try and make the connectivity with the iDrive 7 as hands-free as possible. So you've got the voice assistant, which can take care of so many things. It's called Hey BMW. You also have, deep down here in this console, you have a wireless charging pad, which is great if you have a phone that doesn't have an aluminum back to it. Mine does, so I wasn't actually able to utilize it. So if your phone has a glass back to it, then that wireless charging pad will actually work. The other thing that it has is wireless connectivity to Apple Carplay. Now, BMW as a staple still does not support Android Auto. Now, there's been a contentious issue with Apple Carplay because a while ago BMW decided that they would start charging for Apple Carplay connection. A lot of people didn't love it, and up until just recently, actually, late 2019, BMW in the States at least decided that they would stop charging for Apple Carplay. But on the day that we're recording this, taking a look at the BMW Canada website, it is still charging for Apple Carplay as subscription, but it's kind of lifetime. Well, lifetime, as long as you probably have this car. It's about $300 for 240 months. You've even got gesture control. Let's start this up here. This car is just gorgeous. The dash we'll get to is just gorgeous. And you've got gesture control even for your volume. So you've got volume on your steering wheel, and you've also got a very nicely positioned knob just here, but you can also just go.
You take me places that tear up my reputation, manipulate my decisions, baby.
I love it. Okay, so we've got our driving modes down here. All the buttons beautifully positioned. You've got adaptive, which will adapt to the certain conditions of the road, but also your driving style. You got Eco Pro. If you want just a nice, soft drive, you can put it in Eco Pro. The steering is lighter. I mean, on a BMW, the steering is always just a little bit heavier, but it can be as light as it will possibly be using Eco Pro, and obviously it's going to tune the engine right back, and it's not going to grab hold of you. It's not going to just launch off the spot if you're just trying to take off softly when you're out getting the groceries. It's totally fine. You've got comfort mode, which is just that. I've spent most of my time in comfort mode. If you still want it to perform in comfort mode, you can throw your foot to the floor and it most certainly will. By the way, of course, this is the xDrive, so all-wheel drive. It is rear biased, so if you are getting a bit of tail happy in sport mode, which I'll get to in a second, I won't get tail happy, then obviously it's going to be performing somewhat like a rear-wheel drive car, but you're still going to have way more traction with the xDrive. It's a terrific system from BMW. It's been around for a while now, tried and tested. The xDrive is standard in Canada, but you can still choose, which is very common, rear-wheel drive or the xDrive in the States. And even though this car gets 127 more horsepower than the 330i, which is still 255 horsepower from the 4-cylinder and a terrific car, the mileage is not too bad on this. So you're getting 11.4 litres per 100 in the city, or 8.4 highway, which is 22 miles per gallon in the city and 30 miles per gallon for the highway. It's not terrible fuel economy for a car that can be absolutely outstanding and breathtaking for performance if you really want it to be. I mean, let's go to Eco Pro here, which is the tamest of the driving modes, and I'll throw my foot to the floor and it's not too bad. I mean, that's still way better than most cars, but that is not intimidating, and that's how this car can be anything that you really wanted it to be. Or if on Sunday morning daddy's really late for golf, he can pop the Sport button and he can put it to Sport Plus, and it tightens everything up. It tunes the engine way higher, the steering's tighter, suspension's tighter, just like the kids really enjoyed. You've also got the MSport brakes on this, which I think is another practical feature that is going to help you for safety for the family. So I'm going, what am I going, 60 at the moment. I'm coming up to a light. Oh. Another way that this car is very safe for the family on the road is with the driver assistance package, and it's very easily accessible on the button here. And there you've got your catalogue of your driver assistance, like your side collision warning, your front collision mitigation, your lane departure warning, active blind spot detection, and you can even choose if you want steering intervention to go with those too. And it also is one of those things that helps it get the top safety pick plus from the IHHS. This also has a head-up display. Again, it allows you to keep your eyes on the road, keep this family safe. You're not having to dart over here for stuff or looking at your dash. Climate control is easily accessible too. It's just a small little screen here for your climate control, which some people find a little bit annoying, but I actually found it quite good. The only thing which a lot of people have talked about is trying to get the air conditioning on. You have to go through a few steps in the infotainment system, or you can just set it to auto and it will set the temperature to whatever you want. Another thing BMW does excellent is their parking assistant. Now, this one, I used it in the BMW X1 as well, and it's outstanding, especially if you are worried that maybe you've got a car in a garage, you've got kids that play outside, you don't want them to be in any danger if you're backing out with a car. You see absolutely everything. It's got the 360-degree... Oh, sorry, I'm doing the gesture again. So why do I automatically talk like this and it goes up? But the resolution on the cameras is outstanding. You've got the surround camera on it, and also just the way that it detects everything around you when you're backing up is second to none. You can see where the curb is, you can see where there's any objects that you might be getting close to. Obviously, if your kids are running about near the car, you'll be able to see them as well, not only on the camera, but it will show you with the different coloured lights of how close they are and if it's a danger to you. So the parking assistant on the BMW is outstanding. I love it. Now, of course, everything comes at a price. I've mentioned that this car is reasonably expensive. So how much is this car going to cost you? Well, in Canada, the M340i xDrive will start at $62,100. And in the States, that's $54,000. That's a lot more than $49,000 starting for the 330i. That's in Canada. And in the States, just over $40,000. And then on top of that, this has got the Premium Excellence package. Interesting name, but that actually has a bunch of different features that I've actually covered, which make it a really lovely, practical family car. And that package isn't cheap either. That is about $8,200 in Canada. For a grand total, this car just over 72,000 Canadian. Expensive, yes. Awesome, absolutely. So that's the 2020 BMW M340i xDrive. Sure, it comes at a price, but it's a magnificent vehicle. If you found this review useful, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all our reviews as soon as they come out every single week. Until next time, from Family Wheels, I'm Kai.